A basement can be a bit overwhelming when it comes to design, even if you have a general idea of what you want to accomplish in that basement. This feeling of burden very probably comes from the sheer size of the basement area. Most often, it is the largest space in a home. So, why is it specifically so difficult to visualize the end product of a well designed basement when looking at an incomplete one? The reason is division, better yet, the lack thereof. The lack of preset division in the space creates a problematic encounter for the everyday person. Your ability to recognize designated areas is stripped from you. The upper levels of a home are already divided into sections by the builder. The room perimeters, the designations, they've all been preset for you. This allows you to grasp a general understanding of room layout. This is your living room, this is your kitchen, here are your bedrooms. Even if you don't have an eye for design, if you've been on this planet for longer than 4 seconds, you have a general concept of what items can be placed in these areas. A bedroom. I probably need a bed, maybe a dresser. I like a TV to watch at night. A nightstand beside the bed could be nice. There it is. At least you have something. But when you look at a blank basement, here's this giant rectangle of drywall and no dividing markers to signal what purpose each part of the room serves. What commonly ends up happening for people is one of two things. The first is that people will attempt to fill voids with duplicate and useless items, or they end up with awkward gaps of space because the furniture placement is not properly laid out. Think of this as trying to fill a triangle with 3 squares. No matter how you place those squares, there will be disorderly and unappealing gaps. If you want to make the best use of your basement, it's going to require some preparation in the understanding of what you're working with. Today, I'm going to show you how we approached the design of a completely unfinished basement and transformed it into a fully finished entertainment space. If you're a returning subscriber, hit the thumbs up. If you're new here, hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be a subscriber. Remember that if you would like our help in designing your room, you can have that help by clicking the link in the description below. Here is what the floor plan of the basement we were working with looked like. You could consider this a fairly common type of layout of an unfinished basement in a detached home. A large open space without any real division. It's purely additional square footage, and it's up to you on how to utilize it. So how do we approach this? First, let's write down what you want to have in the basement. I don't mean individual pieces, furniture items, or decor. What I mean is what uses and activities do you want this basement to accomplish? For this one, the homeowners requested that they be able to use this space in a few different ways. They did want the basement to be an entertainment area for hosting guests, but they also wanted it to be comfortable for just the two of them during nights alone. Great. So now that we have that, let's take a look at our floor plan. If you don't have one of these, I'm going to suggest that you create one on a piece of paper. When we're physically within an incomplete room, you can find yourself with a feeling of angst when trying to decide what to put where. When we're in the thick of it and standing in the middle of a room as large as a basement, it can be a bit distressing. A floor plan is going to allow you to have an aerial perspective so that you can mentally regain control of the direction of this room. You'll have better spatial awareness and an understanding of the space that you're working with. With your floor plan in front of you, I want you to see if there are any potential separations that you can spot. You can identify these starting points by some of these. Finding hard angles in the outer perimeter, using the edges of an existing space that the builder did separate, like a storage room or mechanical room, or simply finding the natural middle of open areas. This is what ours looked like once we did this. So now that we have a sort of grid system that can act as a guide to section placement, the grid lines are potential borders to different designations. Remember that this grid system is a guide. It's not a hard and fast rule as to a set of boundaries. Let's return to our list that we made of rooms from largest to smallest. Where can we put our TV and lounge area? Well, right here looks good. Now we need the second largest space for our recreation area. How about here to the left of the large lounge area? The wining and dining table, this general area here should work just fine. And of course, our small kitchenette there on that wall looks great. There we go. That's some real progress. That's a lot further than most people get. You will have some open space within this, and that's okay. This is necessary as people need to be able to distinguish routes in which they can travel upon. These are ways that the person can identify a path when moving through the room. We have this set up so that as soon as guests come down from the stairs, they are traveling through the center of the room. This way, they'll be able to experience the room as a whole when they encounter it. In terms of styling, we need to find a middle road between balance because this couple has two different opinions on what a basement should look like. The husband was drawn to our bold approach, while the wife had the affection for the more commonly found light and airy look. We needed to take traits from both of those styles and mesh them together. Let's see what we came up with. The style we ended up going with could be considered a variation of Scandinavian, predominantly white with wood and plant accents. I say variation because in order to bring a bit more boldness into the room, we went the route of using darker woods and a bit of leather as accents. Not only did we darken the wood, but we increased the amount of it compared to what you would typically find in a Scandinavian interior. Okay, so let's start with the TV and lounge area. Assigning this area to the largest grid space allowed us to comfortably create an impressive focal point for the room. As with most people's basements, it's likely that this area gets the most use. It only makes sense that the largest resource of space is gifted to this area. A movie couch, coffee table, side chairs, an impressive TV console area and display. You don't have to struggle in finding a way to include these items because you've already allotted an appropriate amount of space for them. The recreation area we went with was a golf short game area. There was enough space here that would allow you to do both putting as well as chip shot practice. Now, obviously, you probably wouldn't choose golf for this area if you don't golf. But this couple enjoys the sport and they play it together. This makes for the perfect activity to entertain guests as well as bond over when it's just the two of them. This could be a great area for a ping pong table, a poker or a foosball table, a game board area for the family. The list can go on. If you have quite a few guests over, the recreation area being next to the lounge section is quite convenient, because people are able to continue to speak with each other even if they're engaging in different forms of gathering in the basement. The roughly 12 by 8 foot nook of space was fitting for a decently sized dining table. As you can see, we were able to include 7 chairs in this particular setup. You might ask yourself, well, would I really be dining or eating a meal down here? Probably not, unless you were hosting a really large party. But a table in a basement is highly versatile. Each month, I'm going to give away a free room design. I'm going to select this winner from the group of people who follow the newsletter. So how do you follow the newsletter? There's going to be a link down in the description of this video that will allow you to subscribe to it. After that, you're automatically entered every month for a chance to win a free room design. For example, if you're someone who already has a pool table in your recreation area, but you also want a card table, well, now you have it. A separate sitting table aside from the main lounge area is also nice if you want to have a nice glass of wine with friends and chat more intimately without the distraction of the TV. Not to mention that you might end up choosing a lighter colored sofa that you really don't want someone to spill red wine on. For the kitchenette, we didn't have to stray very far from what the original builder's suggestion was on the floor plan. The faded gray marking that you're seeing on the floor plan the builder put is a way of them saying this is possible here, and they may even have an option to do it when you're building the home, but they haven't included it thus far. To conserve space, we modified the drawing to be a one-wall kitchenette with no sort of island or protruding countertop. The other thing to keep in mind when planning for anything that requires water, sinks, dishwashers, refrigerators with ice makers, is that they need water lines to operate. The mechanical room has typically pre-installed water and sewage lines, so it made sense to keep the kitchenette within close proximity of these lines. Because we neatly pre-planned the basement's layout, it allowed us to include two additional items that were more nice to haves rather than necessities for these homeowners. This follows the same sort of principle that says a person who has a very organized day has the most amount of free time. An organized approach to the design of the basement resulted in having some well-defined bonus space, a very different feeling compared to being stressed about finding or including everything. The wife had mentioned that she enjoyed painting as a hobby, and it would be great to have a little section to display her artworks. We were able to use the additional square footage off to the side of the lounge area as a peaceful nook and gallery wall. The other item which found a home was a custom bottle rack display for these clients' wine collection. The most fun part of this creation was definitely the mural in the background of the cellar. Even if it's just for a couple of seconds as a person chooses a bottle off of that rack, they're momentarily transported into the regions which produce these fine wines. Is it functionally necessary? No, but it drums up an emotional connection which we as humans have a need to experience. You have now seen an approach to planning, organizing, and designing a basement. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you feel like sticking around a while, feel free to subscribe. See you on the next one.